Hello and welcome. My name is Jimmy, and today you join me in the 2020 Toyota 4Runner Venture Edition. The Venture Edition is actually all new, and well, 2020 is refreshed as well. We'll get into that. But if you're watching this video, it's most likely because you're looking at a 4Runner, but you haven't decided which trim to get. So let me tell you why the Venture trim may be the best trim you can get, at least in Canada anyways. In the US, there's a little bit more variables. So what is the Venture trim? The Venture trim is basically the TRD Premium or TRD Off-Road, depending where you're from, and it adds a few styling bits like the roof basket, the TRD wheels, blacked out mirror caps, door handles, and spoiler, and along with some badges. In terms of pricing, it's at $44,385 US. In Canada, it's $55,390. It sits, well, below the TRD Pro by $5,000 to $6,000, depending if it's US or Canadian currency, and of course above the TRD Premium and Off-Road. So in terms of pricing, it's right in the middle, which completely makes sense, as it is kind of that middle of the range. But first, let's talk about what's new for the 4Runner in 2020. First, proximity key. There are other cars that had this 10 years ago. But for 2020, 4Runner's brand new feature, a proximity key. So you're able to go up to the vehicle with the key in your pocket and open up the doors and lock them without taking a key out and pressing lock and unlock. And when you're inside, you can push the engine start button to start the vehicle. Revolutionary. And something I really like as well, out back when you're opening and closing that rear window, you can lock the door there. It's a really, really good feature to have because you no longer have to put the key in, turn it to wait for that window to come down, or turn it the other way for it to go back up. It's just a button now. It's just so much easier. But that's it for the outside of the 4Runner. Everything else is exact same. It's been basically the same for about 10 years now. So it's kind of like, a little dated. But the people that are buying this truck, they don't care. You know, they like that old school rugged vibe, and this definitely gives that off. In terms of the inside, what's new is this brand new 8-inch infotainment system. You get Apple CarPlay now, you get Android Auto, which is a very nice touch, and it works really, really well. The only thing is, like, for a lot of Toyota vehicles, the contrast just isn't that great. So when it's bright and sunny out, the colors are a little washed out and it's kind of hard to see. But the rest of the controls is, well, very, very similar. You do get a new cluster as well. There's a new display in the center to show you steering angle, fuel economy, which is always terrible. You also get other stuff like trip computer and whatnot as well. Overall, like I said, it's a very familiar place when you're inside here. There isn't auto headlights. You can't tap to turn. I mean, it's old school in its vibe, and it's completely fine because, once again, people that's buying this truck, this is exactly what they're looking for. What I can say is the seats themselves are quite nice. Toyota has put these soft text materials on it. It's basically pleather. Works well though. I mean, wipe them off, it stays nice and clean. I also like the TRD headrests that's on here as well. They kind of bring that TRD value up to the vehicle. Looking in the back seats, it's actually decently comfortable. You get that stadium seating effect, so it sits a little higher than the front seats. And there's plenty of room for adults and kids, no problem. There's also 2 USB chargers in the back as well. Awesome feature to keep everyone's devices charged in this 21st century. In the back, we have 47.2 cubic feet of space. You can fold the rear seats down in a 2-stage fashion to 89.7 cubic feet, which is plenty big enough for, this size of vehicle. No one's cross-shopping this with the van or anything like that to really haul. But what you do get is an inverter in the back. 400 watts of output, so you can plug in laptop, chargers, what have you, and you can really stay on the road. And that's really what this truck is for, staying out there and having a great time. And you definitely would be having a great time because under the hood, there's a good old reliable 4-liter V6. This engine puts out 270 horsepower and 278 pound-feet of torque. It's, well, more than adequate. You don't long for more power. Honestly, when driving this truck, I feel like it's fine. The only thing is that 5-speed automatic that's on here, it's a little dim-witted. If you're driving along, it puts itself onto eco mode to save on fuel. So you really have to bury that throttle before it actually starts going, which, can be fun, but sometimes you just want a little bit more excitement and it's kind of hard to find. What I kind of wish is they put that 3.5 liter that's in the Tacoma in this. Would be a little bit better in terms of economy and just overall refinement. Because this 4 liter that's under the hood, with the blocky nature of the vehicle, well, you'll be looking at 17 miles per gallon combined, which of course isn't great, but I mean, it's better than, maybe a V8 would. But let's talk about how it drives. The Venture model in Canada comes standard with Kdss, Kinetic Dynamic Suspension System. In the US, that is an optional extra. I think it's around $1,600 or $1,700, but it is one of those things that does transform the 4Runner from an everyday street truck to something that's very capable. Because Kdss, I'll link a video up here, or here, I can't remember which side it is, on Toyota's video explaining exactly what Kdss does. But essentially, it's a hydraulic ram that connects both front and rear sway bars on the driver's side. So that way, when the vehicle is on the highway, like kind of I am now, when you're turning left or right, what happens is it pushes the body on either side, and the thick sway bars that this has, well, keeps the body upright, which is great for on-road performance. But when you're off-road, you don't want thick sway bars. You want articulation. And sway bars reduces articulation. So there's a lot of other manufacturers, what they do is put in Swaybar Disconnects, like the Wrangler Rubicon, for example. So what they do is they disconnect that sway bar to give you more articulation, which is a fine system on itself. But what you have to do is you have to press a button to disconnect that sway bar. And in my testing, sometimes you can't disconnect it if there's a little too much pressure on that joint. So you have to get to a flatter area first before able to actually use that disconnect function. What Kdss is, it's always active. There's no button to press. So when you're driving on the road and the suspension, it needs to do what it needs to do, well, that damper is going to go up and down as it needs. But in off-road situation where you need that articulation, that hydraulic ram is able to extend or compress to help with that. It's actually a really, really cool system. And what's nice is you can still get a mild lift on the 4Runner and still use that Kdss system. Some, I'm sure if you're going hardcore off-road, you don't want Kdss because, well, it does limit the amount of articulation you can get. But it is a very good system if you're thinking about having this car on the road as well as off-road. So if this is your only vehicle, Kdss may be worth it. But if you're looking at just a pure off-road rig, probably not. Because the Venture is based on the TRD Off-Road or TRD Premium package, you also have crawl control and that multi-terrain select. All the controls you find right up here by the rear view mirror, so far works well. I was able to try out the system in some light off-road scenarios, but this truck is capable of so much more. For those who are looking to use this vehicle more on-road, well, you'll be glad to know that Toyota has implemented Safety Sense P on this vehicle. No, it's not Safety Sense 2.0, and there are a few differences. It does have collision mitigation braking, so it can stop for you. It also has radar-guided cruise control, but it's only able to be active above 28 miles per hour. Anything slower, well, it'll be deactivated, so it can't do stop-and-go traffic. It does have lane sense, but it's not lane keeping. So when you're outside the lane, well, it's gonna beep. Like so. But it doesn't actually push you back into the lane. So while it is helpful and it does alert you, it doesn't help you in terms of getting you back onto the lanes. Overall, the 4Runner is an old dog with some new tricks, but does it have enough new tricks? Well, that's hard to say. Most people love this platform because of what it's able to do. I mean, if you're in the market for a 4Runner, you're going to be buying a 4Runner. There is no other vehicles that is able to get what 4Runner owners love and want in any other car. And Jeep owners, the exact same. A Jeep owner most likely won't go towards a 4Runner, and a 4Runner owner will most likely not go over to a Jeep. And that's how this 4Runner stays so successful. As I mentioned in the beginning, in Canada, this Venture trim makes a lot of sense. Let me explain a little bit more about that. In Canada, the Venture trim comes standard with Kdss, also the sunroof. And if you finance it over 84 months, it's $11,594 cheaper than the TRD Pro. So if you think about it, for almost $12,000, this is an amazing value. Sure, it doesn't have the Fox shocks and it doesn't have the amazing color combinations that you can get, but is that worth it? Well, it's completely up to you. If you straight up pay cash, it's $6,730 Canadian dollars. In the US, it's $5,480 without the Kdss option nor the sunroof. So if you add those two on, well, the pricing is quite competitive. So in the US, maybe it's worth it to get the TRD Pro. But in Canada, I think this Venture trim definitely makes a stand for itself. In any case, thank you so much for watching this video. Like the video if you do, subscribe if you want to see more. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. And yeah, have a great day. Take care.